Passage 2, The One in Charge. The morning drums stir all those who had slept that night. The kids wake first demanding food that was just starting to be prepped, and the men wake second, all climbing out of their tents, gathering around for morning drinks and cleaning their weapons of war. However, one man was already up, the leader. A man known as Wolf had awakened mere minutes before the early morning drums, only to see the foreign flag. The wolf looks at what the raven has dropped on his bed. He thinks about how they have to hold out till winter starts. The cold northern snow that is to approach in a few months will give them the window to fortify for the next summer's inevitable battle. Yet these enemy scouts were here so early. Could it be they aim for winter and not summer? How are the scouts here so early? The wolf is old as he is stubborn. He summons the men to the main tent. They gather around and whisper, the throng of a few hundred men looking over one another in a tight circle so close you can feel body heat. Wolf holds the flag out and says simply that the enemy is early. The raven had another successful flight. The men begin to talk aloud now. They never see the raven. They hear of him, they know he is the youngest of the men in camp. Yet they don't know his face or his age, not his heritage or his immediate family or lack thereof. No, the only thing they know is that the raven flies at night, and that if the average man were to follow they would be too slow to keep up. They hear often of how he cuts down dozens of men at night in minutes. How whole encampments become his jungle once the sun goes down. They call lions kings, yet the raven makes them look weak. Lions roar proudly, but the raven is silent. Lions hold their ground while the raven soars above it. Lions are strong, yet the raven knows strength does not bring victory. And the raven mocks the lions for this night after night. And to say the raven even considers them lions is a very insult to the animal itself. No, the men in camp know better. The raven dressed in blue would never even think of a lobster back as anything more than coats and prey. The man known as Wolf makes that clear day in and day out. Yet even the wolf knows little of this enigma that seemingly lives among them. No, not even Wolf knows of this bird's past or his intent. He is only lucky enough to know but a few details. He knows he never summoned the raven, he just happened to make his nest here. It did not matter if it was the wolf's camp, it mattered even less that these were the wolf's men of arms and action. The wolf knows that the raven could take them out before a single musket round could even be loaded, much less fired. No, this was the raven's nest, and the wolf and his men were but a guest to the bird of prey. Yet not a very typical one. Ravens are not traditionally a bird of prey. But the blue raven is an honorary raptor. The men are ordered to make extra fortifications. This forward camp and its few hundred soldiers are all that stood between the newly blooming city lying behind them and a force from a foreign shore. Wolf tasks the second most senior man in the group to keep everyone organized on the building of defenses and basic traps. And during the midst of all this, a lone messenger dressed in friendly colors approaches on horseback. He says but a few words. He declares that he has a letter from the general addressed to Wolf. The messenger rides off towards the city with more letters just as fast as he drops the current letter off. Wolf does not want to open the letter. He already knows that the timing of Raven's hunt paired with a letter from Washington himself only confirmed his suspicions. Lancaster City was the next target of the British Crown. Yet he knows he must open it to know for sure. And that is when, with a gasp of air he can barely keep quiet, he reads in the general's writing. The even mightier city of Philadelphia, the capital city of the 13 colonies, was lost to the lions. It seemed they came down from the north and cut down the southeast, cutting off the eastern half of Penn's Woods, forcing everyone toward the west and directing everyone else to the south, along with forming a half circle around Wolfe's general area. And that in a few weeks, the newly declared capital known as Lancaster is to hold strong against the Lion's Roar. The general has written that he will be present with his army in but a week, bolstering the Wolf's few hundred by a few thousand. By all estimates, over 3,000 militia soldiers will be present for the defense. The Wolf for more than a moment stares off blankly at the words, and yet he snaps back into form and composure. He folds the letter and looks off into the sky. "We need our bird in the skies," he says to himself. And with that, he turns toward the main house at the camp that holds the women and children of the men he commands. He steps through the doors and talks to one of the female hands inside. The appearance of Wolfe startled the lasses. The old soldier looked gruff for his age. And before the hands can say a word, the Wolf simply says, "I need to see Raven." The women look at each other and ask the commander to wait a moment. The ladies are the only ones to ever see Raven at any point. This will be the commander's first time seeing the Raven with his own eyes. And as the one lass begins to walk off to retrieve the bird of prey, footsteps as silent as moonlight can be felt. The wood floor barely vibrates as one individual walks into the room from what feels like out of nowhere. Wolfe had never seen this person before, nor had he ever heard his voice, and yet the presence this individual carried made it clear it was the man he needed to see. In a quiet voice, the enigma itself spoke softly. "Wolfe." I could hear the messenger from a mile away. "It's not every day we get a letter from Washington." The commander looks into the silver eyes of the enigma. Those eyes, even as they are talking, he knows they are studying him. He can see the eyes tracing his figure, analyzing his mass and his density. Even amongst allies, this bird treats most like prey. Wolfe finally opens his mouth. The capital has fallen. Those scouts were just the start. The room goes cold as that last word leaves his mouth. Most birds hate the cold. Not this one. No, a blue raven brings the cold stench of death with him wherever he walks. And that's when the commander realized no more needed said. The raven walks closer, almost too close for the commander's comfort. "Where am I?" needed Wolfe. The Wolf looks at the raven and simply says what he knows for sure. The city will not survive a frontal assault. And they both know this. Those lobster backs will overrun them even with reinforcements. They were expecting the next wave a half year from now. And they are here right now. By this point, even the children hiding in the other room could feel the gravity pressing down. No one in this camp, no matter the age, was any man's fool. The women look amongst themselves as the two men stare into the current reality. And that's when Raven says simply, "I'll divert them." Wolf looks in disbelief. "How?" he asks. Writes Fairy. "Be there with Washington."